Hey, what's up, Masters? Welcome to another episode of Path to Mastery podcast. And today we are with Mr. David Ginsburg. David, what's going on, man?
Thanks for having me, David. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. It's good to have you. I'm excited because we're doing another one of these on Wednesday
You're going to
where
be on my show, Business Beat, on WICN Public Radio.
I'm going to be on your show Wednesday,
That's right.
public radio. So I'm excited for that. So it's a
Yeah.
nice swap, and you're a professional too. So I feel like that's good. I feel like
Yeah,
I'm a little nervous now. It's kind of
it's the
funny
brotherhood
interviewing a
of the
radio
bald
guy.
heads. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we look similar. You just need to get some glasses and then we'll look almost the
I'm wearing
same.
contacts. I'll wear
There
glasses next
you
time.
go. All right, cool. Well, I'm glad to have you on, man. And you are the general manager of a local radio station, as well as you are a director and owner of a marketing agency, correct?
Not an owner, digital marketing director at Hollywood Agency, which is based in Hingham, Massachusetts. Yeah, and so I'm the general manager and program director at 90.5 WISN Public Radio in Worcester. So I hold two jobs down. And for anyone listening that thinks that sounds insane, it sort of is. But at the same time, there's a lot of overlap between the careers, and it's a tremendous opportunity to learn constantly as I'm moving forward, both as a manager of people, as someone that's running a nonprofit organization, as well as working for clients in a for-profit space. And it's an interesting overlap in that digital marketing and public radio, the goals are very much similar in that you're trying to build an audience and sustain an audience and keep them engaged as you do through your podcast. You do so through different media, but in the end, the goal is the same. It's connecting with people and in ways that are meaningful for those associated businesses.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. That there's a lot of synergy between the two. How did you get started in radio? Let's start there.
I've loved radio as a medium since I was a kid. I'd go on the road. My dad was a salesman, and I grew up in a family wholesale business. My dad and grandfather were wholesale distributors to old-fashioned five and dime stores and variety stores around the country. And so my dad was on the road all the time, and he loved radio. And I'd go on the road with him, and he'd have tapes of old radio shows like Blondie and The Shadow and the Jack Benny program. And I loved it as a medium, and we always listened to baseball games on the radio as well. And I always loved radio as a medium, as a theater of the mind, and it really sort of enhanced your creativity as a listener to picture what was going on. And I always wanted to work in radio. And then I majored in English in college, didn't want to teach or go to law school, and was working in the family business and decided to go for it in radio. I went to broadcasting school, and I wound up working in commercial radio for a long time. I worked at WBOS in Boston, 92.9. I consulted with a couple of other stations, and then in around 2008, 2009, social media was really taking off right as the economy had cratered in the crash in August of 2008. And so I shifted into social media marketing. I was working for a buying agency at the time, was able to launch their social media program offering. And then a couple of months later, we got laid off. My department got shut down. The agency eventually went out of business. But I got laid off on a Thursday, and on a Friday, I got a phone call from a client of the agency who said, we hired them to do our social media so we could work with you. Can we still work with you? And I said, sure. It's one of those moments where you say yes and figure it out later. And so I said yes. And then I started working with them. They were a theater group. And then a friend of mine owned a restaurant at the time in Brookline. He called and said, hey, I heard you doing some of this stuff. Can you help me out? I can't pay you in cash, but I can give you $1,000 in trade. And I said, great. So now I have theater tickets to a prestige theater. I have $1,000 in restaurant trade. I bet I could build some clientele this way. And so I did, and I had a partner. And so I was able to build a social media marketing consultancy, serving as a white label resource for a lot of local agencies in the Boston area, and then independent clients that I had directly. And then in summer of 2018, a friend of mine reached out and said, WISN in Worcester is looking for a GM. Do you know anybody that's available part-time? And I said, I'm available part-time. And so I interviewed. It's a long process, and I was hired. I started here in October of 2018, and I worked it out. For your listeners that are curious, public radio in market 118 is not very lucrative. So I needed to have a second income source to survive. And so I worked out an agreement with the station where I was committed to a set number of hours here and could still consult. And then a couple of years later, I was consulting still in Hollywood Agency, which is based in the South Shore. It's owned by a woman named Darlene Hollywood. That is her real name. She had reached out, and I consulted with them on and off for years. And Darlene had reached out. Someone was leaving. Would I cover for a couple of weeks while they looked to hire? I said, sure. And one thing led to another, it led to a contract through the year, and then it led to an employment offer, which became a part-time. I didn't want to leave the station, so it became a part-time employment offer. And it's been a great match. I work a lot of hours, but it's been a great match. I think the through line with all of this is just saying yes to opportunities that come up, even if you don't really know the path forward and don't know how this is all going to work out, and maybe having some internal doubts as you go along. I said yes anyway, and said, it's something innately. I recognized there was an opportunity. I wasn't sure where it was going to go, what it would lead to, but I said yes, and it turned out to be an incredible experience in both realms. And I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I have that have both afforded me. And the station, I'm a Worcester native, born and raised. Being able to work in a nonprofit and work for this community to be able to provide programming that benefits the community and produce events that benefit the community, and just hearing from people who really appreciate the music they get. There's not a lot of jazz radio left. It means a lot to me. And at the same time, working for an agency with woman-owned and led, tremendously strong management. It's a great work environment. I've learned a ton. I got to work with some great clients. It's really been a great experience, and I'm grateful for every bit of it.
So a couple things. I'm curious to know, like, I want to know how the program, the station benefits the community, as you mentioned that. But also, like, why not podcast? Like, what's the difference between, so there's two questions. What's the difference between well, if we'll go with the community first, then you can ask, like, I'm curious to know, like, why not do a podcast? What, in your opinion, what's the difference between doing a podcast in a radio show?
There's not a huge difference, David. It's a great question. It's not that I definitively said I'm never doing a podcast. I've been on podcasts, I produce podcasts, and I'm working on something for myself that might launch later this year. I've always loved radio as a medium because of the immediacy of it, and that people can tune in and out as they wish. We've seen a lot of changes, and one of the benefits of the age we live in technologically is that people can go back and listen to radio content on demand as a podcast. When it's a time shift, when they don't have time to listen in real time. And so I have nothing against podcasting. I think it's terrific. I think what you do is great. You built a tremendous audience. I just enjoy the radio part of the immediacy of it. And in terms of what we do for the community.
What do you mean immediacy? What is that? Like,
meaning that the immediacy of being on the air. I'll give you an example. When the pandemic first struck in 2020, in March of 2020, there was no blueprint for any of us of how to move forward. Testing supplies were in short supply. PPE was lacking severely for local hospitals. Nobody knew what to do. Do I go to work? Do I stay home? Am I going to get sick and die in the street? Nobody knew what to do. And for a lot of commercial stations that are canned and the music and the hosts are piped in from out of town, they can't very quickly alter their programming and say, well, here's where we can drop off PPE supplies in downtown Worcester, or here's where testing is available in Worcester. We, however, at WICN, were able to go on the air and within minutes of getting updated information saying, there's testing available at this location. You can donate your PPE supplies at these 3 drop-off locations. They're desperately looking for trash bags and face masks and whatever else. And so that's what I mean by the immediacy of it. We can break news if there's, we're a jazz station. So breaking news isn't from a hard news standpoint, but, if suddenly, I'm trying to think of a good example. When Chick Corea passed away suddenly, we're able to go on the air and create a tribute to Chick Corea immediately and let people kind of mourn together. And so the community that we serve it's all of Worcester, but the station's been in existence for 55 years. We're one of the only jazz stations left in America, let alone in New England. And we have listeners that stream us from across the country. We have listeners overseas as well. And so by serving them, we're providing them music they're not going to get anyplace else. We create a lot of concert events locally, many of which are free or very low cost, that allow people to come and get a great afternoon or evening of entertainment at a very affordable level, if not free. Excuse me. We work with a lot of other nonprofits to help amplify their messages. So whether that's for something that's health related or consumer services related, we're able to help amplify the voices of other nonprofits and make sure that their impact is being made. So whether we work with the YWCA and events like Power of the Purse as fundraisers, things like that, Dress for Success that we've worked with, Notre Dame Healthcare and helping people stay aware of what they're doing. That's an incredible gift to be able to work with these folks and help to amplify their voices and provide an outlet and represent as much of the different segments of our community as possible. And within that, both musically, we've added a number of new shows the past couple of years. Worcester has a very large African diaspora living in Greater Worcester. So we add an African music show that airs on Saturday nights, and we have a lot of folks that will stream that later on because they might miss it live or they want to go back and listen to it again. And the show is hosted in multiple languages. We have a Latin jazz show on Friday nights. It's very popular. Jim Benitez does a great job with that show. And the show is presented in English and Spanish. We have a Mediterranean music show with a woman who's originally from Iraq who does the show in English and Arabic. And so it allows people to feel a connection to their communities and their home countries through the vehicle of WICN. And I am very grateful that we have the chance to do that.
Super cool, man. Well, I can hear the passion coming out of you. And so that's amazing. I want to get into the topic we resilience and reinvention, and you and I know each other from the chamber. So I think based on everything you just shared, it helps me better understand why you would be so connected to the chamber with the community, being grassroots and so much involvement locally, as well as myself, which is why we're getting involved. Do you guys get a lot of advertisers, or people advertise on the radio?
So we don't call it advertising, we call it underwriting. Because we're a public nonprofit, we can't run ads the way that a traditional commercial station would. So we have sponsors that run underwriting campaigns. And for example, on a commercial station, Westboro Toyota can say, lease a new Corolla now, $99 down, $99 a month, 36 months, blah, 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 come in today. We can't do price and promotion. We can't do calls to action. We can't do qualitative and quantitative things. We can't say, David Hill has the best cars at the best prices. Visit davidhill.com right now. We can say, using Westboro Toyota for an example, they've been a great supporter of WICN. Support for WICN comes from Westboro Toyota with 75 cars in the lot at all times. Learn more at westborotoyota.com. And we know that people that listen to WICN, we've done surveys, will then go, because they understand that those people that support us allow them to have jazz on the radio, they tend to go and support those underwriters. And so our connection through the Chamber of Commerce I've been a member of that group for a couple of years. I joined because I wanted to build additional business opportunities within Worcester. We do have a very loyal audience that listens to us. And so because we only run 1 or 2 spots at a time, 3 or 4 an hour total, it's clean and it's uncluttered. It doesn't sound like a hyped up, come in and buy today. It's very much, hey, this great company is supporting WICN. I should check them out.
I like it. I think the second version was actually better than the first version, and people would be more apt to, because it doesn't sound like an ad. It just sounds like, hey, this is somebody we support. Right. They're doing a good job out there. Check them out. So I love that. I do want to get into the resilience and reinvention, though, because when I asked you, hey, what do we want to talk about? I didn't expect you to say resilience and reinvention. So why is that the topic that you brought up to talk about today?
Well, I think there's a few reasons, David. One of them is that you and I in our off-air, offline conversations had sort of touched upon resilience. You did a terrific presentation to the Chamber a few weeks ago that shared some of your journey and how you work with clients. And
thank you.
Resilience for anybody, but particularly in a sales environment, but in your career regardless and in life, building the ability to respond and rebound from setbacks is critical. Learning from your failures is critical. Resilience from life's traumas is a critical part of it. And for so many of us, without getting to therapy speak, for so many people in America these days, people are much more aware of their difficulties, the challenges they faced, whether they're difficult families growing up, unfortunate circumstances financially, whatever, broken hearts, lost loves, whatever it might be that you've been set back by, whatever. All of us have been kicked in the rear end by life at some point, and usually a few times, and you either can roll over and sort of give up and let your life be kind of just be the end there, or you can get back up, and yes, it hurts and you're going to suffer and it's going to be a tough rebound, but you will rebound. And that ability to become resilient, it's like a muscle. The more you build it, the stronger it becomes. And so those setbacks become less impactful over time. Those hurdles that we all have to go over become lower as you build that muscle and that skill set. And as we age through life, I like to think of myself as a very vibrant, early middle-aged man. It makes it much easier to navigate the challenges that are always going to be thrown at us. And whether that's because of family circumstances, our kids, our significant others, our finances, our work lives, it's whatever those things may be, the ability to just stay focused on what your goal is and push forward to getting to what you want to achieve, regardless of what may get thrown up in your face, is an incredibly important skill. And I'm fortunate that I figured it out at some point in my 40s, probably, that this is what it's going to take. And it makes dealing with life, and not only dealing with day-to-day circumstances and frustrations. And, I certainly have my moments in traffic and drive around the city, but it makes it much easier to bear those difficulties. And sooner or later, you learn to sort of laugh off the small things and not be bothered by them at all. It's just, I have to push forward no matter what. And you also learn to take people as they are, as opposed to how you wish them to be, or only focusing on the narrow slice that affects us, but seeing the entire person that's there. And I think part of what comes with resilience is empathy. It's tough to have resilience without empathy for someone else going through a difficult journey, and being there to provide advice, to provide a shoulder to cry on, whatever it may be. But to be able to offer that support is part of that, and showing people that, yes, you can get through this too. As awful as it might seem right now, you can come back from this. You can go further.
So something you talked about was, well, I don't know if you said distractions or not, but I took distractions.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I know a lot of successful people, and the people that I think are most successful, David, are the people that just refuse to be distracted, right?
Yep.
In my opinion, it's like and I find myself doing this too. Sometimes it's like we see things show up and we look at them as opportunities, and really what they are is just distractions taking us away from the primary
Yep.
thing. And a perfect example is like I actually canceled a bunch of podcast episodes. I've made a lot of changes recently, just saying, as a matter of fact, yeah, I'm just making a lot of things that are on my schedule, I'm taking off my schedule so that I can focus 100% on my primary thing. Do you see that as well as part of, being successful? And how do you deal with all? Because a few times you've mentioned opportunities, and when opportunities show up, but what I've been seeing is a lot of times I see things that I believe are opportunities showing up, but then I realize after, like, I've got this shiny object syndrome. I do. I'm not. I'm saying me personally. Oh my God, that sounds amazing. That sounds great. And then I find myself like so far away from what I want to be doing because I'm focusing on what other people are bringing me. I don't know if I might just sound crazy, but
no, you don't, David. You make a great point. It's some of this, I think, dovetails with what we talked about in Reinvention as well. It's that you recognize the value of your time, and you focus almost maniacally on the one or two things that are most important to you in your career and your life. And you learn to say no, and learning to say no is a skill as well. It's not something that comes easily to a lot of people, and that we want to please other people. We want to be able to say yes because we want to feel good. We want that dopamine hit for a second. But then, think about how often, and I'm sure your listeners, many of them can relate to this. You agree to make plans with somebody. Great. That dinner in 3 weeks sounds terrific. I can't wait to be there. And then the day comes, you're like, oh man, I don't want to go out. I don't leave the house. I don't want to take a shower again. And you dread it because you said yes the time.
I don't even want to go to dinner with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just kidding, but sometimes that's the case too, right? You say yes.
It is. And so, to your point, learning to say no to things that are going that are distractions, that are ultimately going to be those bright, shiny objects. And I think some of the skill you gain is recognizing an opportunity and sort of vetting it for what it actually is. Is this an opportunity for me that's going to help me get closer to my goals, achieve a dream, achieve something that matters to me? Or, as you said, is this another bright, shiny object that I'm going to be distracted by? And we see this in the social media world. Every 6 weeks or so, there's another bright, shiny new platform that's going to be the hottest thing. And a year ago, Be Real was everywhere. When's the last time you heard anybody talking about Be Real? Or during the pandemic, Clubhouse was the next great breakthrough. When's the last time you went on Clubhouse? Which the answer is you haven't. And so
I actually was on Clubhouse yesterday, coincidentally, but that's only because
so you're the one.
I still do I do a worship room on there weekly. Yeah. So, but that's it. Other than that, I'm not. I mean, there were times when we were on there for 12 hours a day. I don't know about you, but there was a time during pandemic where that was my life. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
But it's these bright, shiny objects come along, and then you realize that it's really become a time suck. And a blogger and an author I read a lot is a guy named Tim Denning. I don't know if you're familiar with Tim Denning. He's an Australian guy who does a lot of online writing. And I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember the exact quote, but in a recent post he had sent out, it's not so much about adding more things to your already overwhelming to-do list. It's focusing on just the right things and getting away from the distractions that are not helping you get closer to achieving your goal, whether it's writing a book, creating a successful podcast, building a new career skill, or a new in and of itself. Whatever it is that you're focused on, learning to eliminate the other distractions, eliminating notifications on your phone, for example, from social media sites,
Mm.
eliminating the urge to distract yourself by scrolling through your Instagram feed or your Twitter feed, or getting into pointless political conversations online with people whose minds you're not going to change any more than they're going to change yours, or getting distracted because you want to binge another Netflix show. There are times for those things. Weekends are a great time to do that. But at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday, I'd much rather be focused on something that's going to bring me long-term value than sitting on the couch and mindlessly surfing on my phone or the TV, or both at the same time.
Yeah. So good. I wrote, so one of the questions you made me think of is this getting me closer to my goals? Like when something is presenting. And
Yeah.
so recently literally just this morning, I canceled 2 podcast episodes for this week. Actually, I think I canceled because I have all these agencies that reach out to me now. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so cool. All these, but then I'm realizing that I'm doing all these podcasts with people, and it's not doing anything at all for my podcast. And it's just, I'm not getting paid. I'm away from my business. And so I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. It doesn't even make sense. Like, why am I interviewing
Right.
other sales trainers and promoting them on my podcast? Right. It's like, and it just clicked. It was, and now, and what happens, Dave, is I'm starting to not even enjoy doing the podcast. It's almost like it's a
Up until today,
task.
anyway.
It's like a chore, right? Like, oh God, I gotta do another episode now. And I don't want it to feel like that. I mean, there was a time I loved doing this. Like, even now I'm having fun. I'm having fun with you, right?
Good.
I mean, if I'm gonna do that's how I want it to feel.
I don't want to be the last guest that's a total drag on your on your podcast.
No.
I don't want this.
You're not. Well, you're not. Like I said, I'm having fun, but it's like, where I had to delete all these episodes. Hopefully the people that, now they know. Maybe I made excuses for I can't do this. I got something come up, but I'm just looking at I looked at my schedule, David, on Saturday. I was gone all last week for vacation for the 4th, and I looked at my schedule and I was like, holy cow, I don't have any time for my business. I got like 4 podcast episodes. I've got this. They're in the middle of the day. I got to stop everything I'm doing. And I just said, I can't do this. And that was kind of like when it clicked. And then a friend of mine had said, he shared this. He said, who are the 5 people that you're spending the most time with? Right? Like think about that. And I really started thinking, like, who are the 5 people I'm spending the most of my time with? And that got me anyway, I don't know, maybe I'm having this weekend.
I think you hit on something important, David, in that you started setting boundaries for yourself. I'm not going to allow these distractions, these podcasts that aren't going to help my podcast grow, that aren't going to help my business grow, that really just feel like obligations versus something I really want to do. That's setting boundaries. And that's an important part of development. It took me a long time to figure that out. As a people pleaser, I used to sort of give everything of myself and not save anything for myself. And it leads to misery, because then you go, well, geez, when do I get to sit down and read a book? When do I get to just do nothing? When is someone going to come and offer me the similar investment of their time that I made for them? And that's not out of arrogance or anything else. It's just the practical reality. It's not certainly not a quid pro quo. It's the practical reality. And so setting boundaries becomes an essential part of this. And I'll give you an example of this that can be a little bit tough, but we're, I think, similar in age and generationally. And so my mom and stepfather, my dad died a number of years ago. My mom and my stepfather are both not well. My mom I'm not going to go into details, but there's a very ugly family situation going on involving my stepfather's children and my mom. And when I say children, they're, 60-ish. And my mom, I mean, really the only support that she has. So she texts and calls, for a time was texting, calling every day. And it was the same sort of dumping of anxiety onto me. And I had to push back and offer advice. But my inclination is always to try and fix the problem. And finally, there was an incident a few weeks ago, and I said, I'm done. I can't fix this anymore. I can't fix your problems. I can't solve any problems, because if I'm the one working to solve a problem, it's not going to get fixed. I can't change someone else. And I put boundaries in place. I sat her down. And I said, I need you to be aware. You're my mom. I love you. I'll do everything I can for you, but I can't take on your anxieties anymore. I can't take on your fears, and I can't promise to solve all your problems. That's just not how the world works. And she's been respectful of that. And since then, as much as it's still a very ugly situation, I at least have the safeguards in place so that I'm not constantly sort of distracted thinking about the next text that comes through or the next call that comes through. What's the next crisis? It isn't really a crisis that I have to then deal with. And wherever you are in your life, whatever your circumstances are, finding ways to set boundaries in place that are still loving and still considerate of other people, but without being just giving all of yourself away and leaving yourself depleted is important. And it's a skill that you learn. I'm certainly still learning. Everything I say, everything I offer is, I'm still learning. I'm always a work in progress. I will always be a work in progress until I'm dead. And then at that point, I'll be done.
That's why the podcast is called Path to Mastery, because it's a never ending path. And I believe that I don't know that you'll ever get there. I mean, we can obviously get to the highest levels, but can you really?
I would hope I don't, because
master. Yeah,
it's beginner's mind. Once you believe that you know all there is to know about any particular subject, you close yourself off from learning anything new. And there's always going to be an opportunity to learn something new from another person, from another circumstance, from another client opportunity, whatever it is. There's always going to be chances to learn something new. I'm learning in the course of this conversation. If I came into this thinking, well, I've got it all figured out, what's David going to do for me? This would go nowhere. You'd be like, why did I book this guy? I'm giving up. You should always keep your mind at a beginner's level and assume that whoever you're speaking with, whoever you're out with, knows more about a subject than you do.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. Or the other one I hear is just always make sure you're not the smartest person in the room. So that's easy for me. Sometimes,
I used to joke that
most times. But really, what it's telling you is to get into rooms with people that are doing things at such a higher level than I am. And so to me, that's really, really important to be in those environments where I'm like, wow, look at what they're doing. It makes it, it's humbling and it's inspiring at the same time.
Without a doubt. I mean, think about your journey. You've been in sales a long time, I know, and you've worked for a variety of companies, but think about your journey when you were just starting out. And there are people now, when you sit down, whether it's on the podcast or someone that you're coaching, that could be a version of you from 20 or 30 years ago. And how much do you see yourself in them? And conversely, they look at you the same way you just described when you're out with other people. They look at you and go, wow, David he really knows his stuff. I think at the presentation you delivered in 10 minutes at the Chamber of Commerce meeting, you had 10 minutes to sort of connect, and people lit up because it was a very simple system. And yet oftentimes there's a lot of profundity and simplicity. And so you offer, hey, look, just make sure you call back 4, 5, 6 times, stay on them, put in your CRM. I'm going to touch base with this person again on Thursday, whatever the date is, at whatever time. Someone who's speaking to you is having that same epiphany of going, wow, this guy really knows this stuff, and I need to spend more time around this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, really, it's that easy. But I mean, right. Jim Rohn, I think it's simple, but not easy. Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's simple to set a follow-up call. But is everybody, people doing it? Right.
Right. Is it easy to pick up the phone and dial the day that you're doing make that call? Yeah. But, but that's where it becomes not easy for a lot of people that go, they suddenly get a pang of self-doubt or self-consciousness and don't want to pick up the phone and make the call, or you have to call a client with bad news and you don't want to do it, but you have to because that's part of the job and that comes with the territory too. And then you remember that people are human, and by and large, people recognize most of us are sort of making it up as we go along, figuring out life as we move our way through it. And everyone else that is dealing with something too, and is dealing with some version of the things that we're talking about. And you keep that in mind and lead with empathy, and you're able to connect and push through and persevere. And that's so much of what this is. Think
Yeah,
of the reinvention part of
100%.
this, and that think of how many careers that you've had. I know you've been in sales, but think about the industries that you've worked in and how often you've reinvented yourself, and then to become a trainer and do the path to mastery. You know, that reinvention, it's not so much that you're becoming a different person, it's the next evolution of who you are. And I view
Mm.
myself in a very similar way. I wasn't always a radio guy, I wasn't always a marketing guy, but this is where I am and who I am now. And where the reinvention, if you knew me 20 years ago, you'd be like, there's no way that's the same person.
Yeah, yeah, that's the same with me, brother. It's kind of funny because I was in publishing 30 years ago, and then I went into real estate, and I did real estate for 20 years at a
Yeah.
really high level, which then launched me into training and coaching. But ironically, I'm going back. My wife and I are going. I'm going back into real estate with my wife. We launched a
Oh,
brokerage.
really?
It's always something I've had interest in doing, not just as a broker, but also as an investor. And I'll tell you what I've learned from the teaching and coaching and training has made me. I thought I was a good real estate agent before, but man, it's like next level now when you're dealing with people, when you have all that training on the sales process and not
Yeah.
just on there, but like you do marketing and stuff that I would never have called myself a great marketer in the past, but now I'm starting to have a better understanding of marketing. I mean, so let's talk a little bit about digital marketing before we wrap up today as well, because I know that's
Sure.
your space. And if
Yep.
people want to get in touch with you, first off, what's the best way for people to connect with you? And should they be connecting with you on digital marketing? Is that what
Yeah,
they should connect on? Or okay.
they should. I think for your listeners, I think the best opportunity is going to be for the digital marketing side at Hollywood Agency, because the agency offers really strong PR and media relations services in addition to digital marketing stuff. We are a small boutique shop. There's 9 people, so you're getting the senior leadership. When you hire the senior leadership, you're actually getting them. A lot of agencies, the first meeting when they're pitching the business, you get all the senior leaders are there. I'm sure you've experienced this. And then once the work gets going, you're often dealing with a 25-year-old junior employee. At Hollywood, you get who you hire. When you bring us the senior team in, you're getting the senior team on your account. And so to reach me there, it's very simple. It's david@hollywoodagency.com is my email address there. I would love to speak with you. And I'll give you my cell phone as well. I'm not afraid to if you want to text me or give me a call. My cell phone is 508-847-3658.
All right, awesome. And talk to us. Let's give a couple a couple tips. Let's give the two biggest mistakes you see
Yep.
when it comes to digital marketing for our listeners.
So number one, not having a clear strategy at the outset before you start putting content out there. And number two, not understanding where your audience is spending their time. And a lot of times we've seen, especially small businesses, that think they need to be on every social media platform, and they start posting randomly on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever it's called, YouTube, and across the board. Yet they haven't done the homework to see where their customers are spending their time right now. They don't spend time researching what their competitors are doing and what kind of content their competitors are putting out there. And then the inconsistency that follows is, they post once or twice, then they forget about it for a month, and they come back and post once or twice, and they forget about it for a month. They forget the social part of social media. And then on the flip side, I do a lot of paid social media, meaning paid ads on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram in particular. I've done paid campaigns on Pinterest and Twitter and YouTube, and I've done a fair amount of Google ads and programmatic ads. If you don't know where your audience is and don't have a message that's going to speak to that person, you're going to spend your money foolishly, and you might as well throw it in a dumpster and light it on fire. If I'm trying to reach David Hill, who is a sales trainer and a master salesman in the real estate industry, I'm going to look to see where someone like you is going to be spending their time before I'm going to start spraying and praying ads out there across the universe. If I'm looking for a 20, I'll give you a better example. If I'm trying to reach a 17-year-old young lady who's interested in fashion and cosmetics, I'm probably going to be using TikTok more than Facebook, because that's where she's spending her time, is on TikTok. But if I'm trying to reach a 55-year-old woman who's concerned about estate planning and financial planning for the remainder of her life, LinkedIn and Facebook are probably going to be better options. So knowing where the platform.
How do you know though? Like how would you figure that out?
There's a few different ways to do so. Some of it in the ad tools on each of these platforms, you can do an estimated audience. So you can put in the demographics and psychographics you're looking for and drill down on how many people are out there that potentially could see your message. It's doing platform research. They release reams of data constantly and doing research to see where your clients are spending their time, using different trends reports. Sprout Social puts out a good one every year, things like that. And then a lot of times at the beginning of a process with our clients at Hollywood Agency, I'll do an audit. I'll look at their current social. Sometimes people are doing a great job and it's more continuing what they're currently doing. And sometimes it's a Superfund site. It's a total disaster. We need to start over. And we've had that happen. Clients started 2 different Facebook pages because they forgot the password to one of them, or the content what they're putting out there is filled with typos and doesn't really have anything to do with what the business itself is all about. This is content. It drives everything in social media. There's an old expression that, so the content is king. And although that's partly true, too often people start putting things out there, or they think they need to just share endless amounts of content without a real focus on why. Why is this going to be important to someone they're trying to reach to build a connection with? If you think from a sales standpoint, in terms of funnels, there's the top of the funnel, there's the middle of the funnel, and there's the bottom of the funnel when they've signed a contract and are doing business with you. If you're aiming at the bottom of the funnel without filling the first 2/3 of it, that bottom is going to be a drip at best if you're lucky. You have to start by building awareness. And again, the different platforms offer different tools. Facebook is great for awareness building, driving awareness about your business because of social search opportunities. Instagram is a very similar thing. LinkedIn could be much more about building that pipeline of business that shows people who you are, why you are the best at what you do, why they should work with you. And again, as you certainly know, people don't buy the features, they buy the benefits. How am I going to benefit from this? It's not that you have the brightest, shiniest object. It's that bright, shiny object is going to save me time, make me more money, get me more customers, get me better press, whatever those goals are. That's what you need to strategize for. And so I work with clients to develop those strategies, to learn about their business, and to work collaboratively, because I'll never know your business the way that you do. As much as I might know about real estate, I will never have 1/10 of the knowledge about real estate that you do, David. And so if we're working together, you'll articulate your goals and who your customers are and the segments you're looking for. I'll then craft a strategy, do homework based on that, and work with you to then implement and execute that. Because in the end, you're the expert that I'm going to defer to.
Good stuff, man. Well, you know what? Maybe you and I should talk about that as well. I know we're talking again on Wednesday, so
Yes,
that
sir.
might be our next conversation as well. So I appreciate you being here. I know we've gone in a few different directions. We talked about setting goals. We talked about not being distracted. Digital marketing, radio. So kind of in time. And by the way, if anybody locally, if you're in central Massachusetts, is that where the station covers? Like that area? Certainly you guys can talk to David about radio as well. But what would you say to everybody listening to kind of like tie everything together and, kind of close it up here on resilience and reinvention?
Sure. First and foremost, thank you, Dave, for the chance to be here with you today. This has been a great conversation. I would suggest to people that, to quote a famous book by Ryan Holiday, I'm a big fan of the Daily Stoic and the Stoic philosophy. The obstacle is the way. You have to push forward. Resilience doesn't come from sitting on the sidelines and hoping for things to blow over. Resilience comes from standing in the fight, taking your blows and getting back up again anyway. No matter what gets thrown at you, get up, keep going, keep your eye focused on what matters most to you and your goals, and you'll get there. That's what I'd say. And then lastly, again, thank you, David, for having me on today. It's great. Really, over the last few weeks, getting a chance to know you a bit, learn more about what you do, and to be on the podcast today. I'm appreciative, and I'm excited to have you on Business Beat on WICN. We're going to tape it on Wednesday. It'll air on Sunday at 10 and Monday at 6 next week.
I'm excited to be there, man. That's awesome. So appreciate you, my man. And I look forward to seeing you on Wednesday, and also, talking to you. Who knows? Maybe we can do some, you can do some marketing stuff for us. Cause to me, all the social media and doing that it's just not the best use of my time. So
I hear you. We'll work something out. Thank you, David.
All right, brother. Thank you.
I'll see you soon.